They're going to get healthy here soon with Bregman coming back, and they just look like a team that's kind of figuring out how to win. Now, granted, they had the Nationals and the Rockies here in town, but they're still Major League Baseball games, right? And you got to win them. So it'll be really interesting. I think the East is going to be super tight and generally like the best division in baseball. But if I was a betting man, I would say probably Boston and the Yankees. But too many times have I counted out the Rays, and then they show up late in October, and you go, how'd they get here? So it should be fun, though. I mean, it'll be really competitive. So that's the good part.
So, with Boston trading Devers, trading their best player, and they still find the legs and are competitive. We have that problem with the hockey team. Best player left and trying to sort of fill in the blanks, if you will. How does that even happen, that you actually get better?
Yeah, well, it was different, right? Like the Devers situation, if you look at it, and we can reflect back to that chemistry thing we talked about, right? I certainly don't think Rafi is a bad kid by any stretch of the imagination, but if you look at like his personality, right? Like he's the analogy I'm going to use is he'd be a great Robin, right? To a Batman. Rafi is still a young kid. He doesn't embody, like I think of, you guys mentioned Jose, and I'll bring up Edwin and guys like Tulo. They were just steadfast, right? Like they were just leaders. They were the guys that like you knew you weren't going to break them, right? Every day they were going to just keep showing up and doing their job. Where Rafi is a little bit more volatile as a personality, not to mention the fact that he was the DH, right? Like, and then they had the whole position controversy and all that stuff. So I think a lot of that had to do with the reason why they moved him. And I think they saw a path to a more cohesive group. And I feel like that's what's happening. Only time will really tell. But yeah, that's how it happens, I think. And, it's just a matter of, the personality fitting in with the group at hand.
Hey, Chris, you've been around a lot of great home run hitters. That 2015 team that you were on had some incredible power hitters, and Joey Bats and Edwin, and on down the line, Josh Donaldson. There's been a lot of discussion about Vladdy here in town. Obviously, the Blue Jays are winning. The Blue Jays are hot. Everybody's happy. But they're also observing that Vladdy hasn't been hitting out of the ballpark like maybe a guy that just earned a $500 million contract should be hitting out of the ballpark with just 12 home runs. You're a guy that pays attention to the details of hitting. I'm curious, when you watch him and you see what he's up to, what do you make of the fact that the balls aren't flying beyond the outfield wall in the way that maybe some people think they should be?
Yeah, I mean, look, beggars can't be choosers is the first thing I would say. Like, look, 10 games over 500 or 15 games over 500, whatever it is, and if the team's playing well, like it really ultimately doesn't matter. And I think his ability to really he's going to impact the lineup no matter how many homers he hits, right? Like the threat, the fear, the imposition of having him in the middle of your order is similar to having Jose or Eddie or Josh in the lineup, right? Like the production, it doesn't matter as much as the threat of the production, because what it's done is it's opened up a lot of opportunities for other guys, right? Like, I would rather Vlad Guerrero Jr. take his walks and stay in the strike zone and make sure that he's having competitive at-bats over and over again, because he's going to get his, right, whenever it happens. And people have seen Vlad go on runs that are, non-human in a lot of ways, because he's capable of it, right? So who's to say that he won't hit 30 in the second half, right? Like we don't know. More than anything else, right? Like I used to have a pitching coach at AA that used to say homers are thrown, they're not hit. So it's a combination of factors, and right, like the one thing that you want to see from a guy like him is you want him to be taking his hits to right field. Like when Vladdy's staying in the big part of the field, which is true for just about any hitter, that's when the whole field really opens up. And there are just a lot of different, considerations to signing the contract. How does it affect you? Like being in the negotiations, all that stuff. It all plays a small role in it, right? It's taking up bandwidth somewhere. So, I'm not too worried about him. He's got hit in his DNA, so like he'll be just fine. And I'm rooting for the team to make a good run. I think I'm past the point now where I don't want any Blue Jays team to ever go past where we were because, I'll be jealous at that point. So,
oh, it's a good place to be. And things are going so well, we can be concerned about this. Julio Rodriguez will not be in the All-Star game. Randy Arozarena has been named to replace him, so George Springer gets stiffed again. Does that make any sense?
No, I think George is, borderline Ben. He should be in the considerations for MVP this year. You've just seen the impact that like a healthy George Springer who's playing up to his capability has on a team. And certainly, like, if you just look at the makeup of the team, really, like, what's the biggest change over the last few years? Sure, you could point to, the young kids that are playing, but like having George as like a cornerstone guy, it doesn't really make sense. But then again, not a lot of things in Major League Baseball make sense. So,
yeah, exactly. Well, hey, I was wondering, you've been a member of the Players Union. There's been rumblings of Rob Manfred, the commissioner, angling for a salary cap, the one sport of the four major North American sports that still doesn't have one. When you hear that, what goes through your mind?
There's just a lot of caveats, right? There's a lot of nuance to the whole thing. Prior to becoming a big leaguer, I didn't know most of this stuff, and then I learned it along the way. Look, I think, and I'm going to say this candidly, like, for a long time, the Players Association took a position that they wanted an uncapped salary structure, right? Now, the luxury tax threshold in some capacity does that already, unless you're a team like the Dodgers or the Yankees who, you're going to make infinity revenue if you want. So it's going to trickle back down to the league, right? It's too hard and too complex to talk about like on surface levels. But what I will say is that not having a cap and not capping what the best players make, right? Like the PA took a position for a long time of like, we want our top end guys to get paid the most, and that'll have a trickle up effect. Now, the league counterpunches, the owners all counterpunch by saying, okay, like, you guys want to do that, and you've seen this over the last really 5-10 years in the game, like, they've promoted the younger player. So like that mid-tier free agent, right, like, is the guy that gets hurt the most, right? Because they're going, oh, we'll give Ohtani $70 million and Soto $70 million or whatever it is, and then, like, we'll just replace those mid-level players with, like, the guys that are getting to free agency in their 6th or 7th year and probably were ticketed to make $8 to $10 million or $12 million or whatever it is. Like, we'll just replace those guys with $700,000 players. So there's just a lot of nuance. People have to give on one side or the other. I certainly think, as being one of those guys who is probably more in the middle, like, I would really like the guy that I consider like the Stones in baseball, like the Rocks, the guy that you know what you're going to get out of him, after his 6th or 7th year, who's slated to make $8 to $10 million, but they say, well, we can just replace you with a young kid. The difference is that young kid, you don't know how they're going to deal with the game emotionally. Like, right, you can look to Boston and see Christian Campbell and the up and down that he had this year, and now you've paid him a lot of money because you're trying to buy out the years of production with less money. And so I'm not against the salary cap in a lot of ways, but I think there's just got to be more consideration to it because there's more detail there. So,
Chris, appreciate your time. Thanks very much. Enjoy your weekend.
Of course, you guys too.
Thank
Talk
you.
Soon. Bye-bye.
Chris Colabello, former Blue Jay. So again, and I think if you went to all the leagues and you were there for this, when the salary cap came in, much like society, squeezing the middle class.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. No, Chris makes a good point that isn't often considered, because he was a rank and file player in that middle class and a veteran at a certain point. And you're right, it's something you don't consider, but needs to be considered. And I think that's one of the ways that leagues have been successful in, not to use raking unions, but certainly dividing unions, is to point out that sort of class structure and point out that, hey, this cap could be good for some of you guys. So maybe more of you guys than not will benefit from this cap, even though the top end guys may not. But and so you have a bit of a class war there with the top end guys and the rank and file guys being on a different page.
Top end will always be looked after.
Yeah, but in the NHL, they're top. If you look at the NHL's top end salaries, Jim, they're not quite as high as the top end salaries in other sports.
No, not by quite a bit.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, we'll come back and play Mini Cherries. But trademark has been okayed, and even though O-Dog's not here, again, I'll send him a text to just make sure we're okay.
You better.
As Overdrive continues live on YouTube, TSN 4, TSN 1050.